Welcome everyone to this week's video. Today we are on Fish Friday number 42. We have possibly the most misunderstood fish in the world. Today we are going to be talking about the red-bellied piranha. Red-bellied piranha, or scientific name Pygocentris nattereri. Again, that is Pygocentris nattereri. There's two ers in there, throwing me off. Sorry about that. It is part of the family Serrasalmidae. It was recently in the Chiracida family. In fact, very recently, within the last 10 years. But it has been since put into its own family. The Serrasalmidae stands for the serrated salmon family, but these are going to be your piranhas, your pacus, things like that. As many people probably already know, it is found in South America, more specifically in the Amazon, Paraguay, Parana, Essequibo. If I said any of those wrong, I apologize, but it is found within those river basins, which covers a very, very large area. And not only are they in those river basins, they are very, very abundant in those river basins. So these base things are basically found in a tropical South America, and they're found everywhere where they could be found. They are a warm water fish. They can endure relatively cold waters, but they are primarily stick to very, very warm waters. They are mainly found in whitewater rivers, which is a complex chemical makeup, whitewater, but they can be found in your black water and your clear water rivers as well. They're primarily going to be found in your whitewater. As you can plainly tell, and many people can picture this fish, it is very laterally compressed, meaning from side to side. It is a disc, got that deep body from the back to the belly, and it has relatively long dorsal fins and a relatively extended anal fin as well. That's relatively, when you talk about the grand scheme of most other fish, it's got a relatively long dorsal fin. As you definitely know, it has razor sharp teeth. These teeth can cut through bone, and can do some serious damage if it decides to bite you. We'll get into that in a little bit. It is important to note that those teeth actually do interlock with each other. So they can be, that is very specific, and it is a very big reason why they are such good at ripping away flesh or anything like that. Now these are primarily gray with silver flecked scales throughout their body, and is where it gets its name. On its belly, it's got this reddish tinge, the red-bellied piranha. Females are usually redder than males, so if I would hazard to guess, I would say that this is a female and this is a male. I don't exactly know. I have very little experience with this fish, but primarily I would say that, this is a relatively red fish. The red extends all the way up the anal fin, whereas this, is not near as red. I'm just going to assume that. However, something that people don't really know about these fish, or are not aware of, is the fact that these fish are actually relatively large. They're not that small. Red-bellied piranhas can weigh, now I want you to really wait before the end of this where we get into the size, but red-bellied piranhas can weigh up to 3.9 kilograms, so that's about 8.5 pounds. So almost 4 kilograms and 8.5 pounds. That's a relatively large fish. Most people think they're pretty small. And these can get up to, in terms of length, these can get up to about 50 centimeters, which that's about 20 inches long. A lot of people think these are, 4-inch, 5-inch fish. They live in schools. These can get up relatively large. Now, usually these are under 35 centimeters, which is about 14 inches. That's what their usual length is. And their usual weight is about 1.8 kilograms or about 4 pounds. That's still a relatively large fish, but not as much of it. In fact, here's what a lot of people don't realize is that the red-bellied piranha, even with those sizes, is actually the second smallest piranha species in the world. Maybe the first, because the smallest species of piranha, the Whimple Piranha, it is under debate on whether or not it is even a piranha at all. And many people don't think it is. Fun fact about the Whimple Piranha, though, its primary food diet, we're getting off to a different piranha here, but its diet is fish scales. That is what the Whimple Piranha actually eats all the time. That's what it's going for. It's trying to feed on fish scales. Really interesting. Now, these do live in shoals. Think, schools of fish. You don't know what a shoal is. But it is very important to note that these do not group hunt. These are not a group hunting fish. Why they are in these shoals is essentially a safety and numbers aspect. Basically, minnows and piranhas, but you see this giant school of fish even in the ocean, and what that school of fish is doing is saying, hey, I'm going to, since I can't run away from you, since I don't have any way to defend myself, I'm just going to get a whole bunch of us and go with the odds that I don't get eaten versus my next door neighbor. So that's what these are actually doing. Now, they do have feeding frenzies. That part is very true. However, feeding frenzies are actually very, very extremely rare. Extremely rare. And usually a feeding frenzy is happens because due to provocation or starvation. Basically, if these things are starving, there will be a feeding frenzy. And they do have aggressive behavior, especially with other piranhas and other fish. And what else is interesting is that aggressive behavior can be directly tied to how these fish communicate with each other. These actually have acoustic communications, meaning sound. So they will vibrate their swim bladder to actually communicate with other red-bellied piranhas. Stay away. I'm going to fight you. Food here, sort of thing. So very interesting. Now, in terms of diet, as Tavi said in the chat, piranha eat people. Well, no. I'm not saying that there hasn't been. Just saying it's not. These are not a dangerous fish. These are omnivores, but these are primarily foragers and scavengers. Insects, fish, plants, organic debris. Meaning these are primarily eating dead things on the ground or plants. There you go. That's primarily what these are eating. They're either eating dead things on the ground or they're plants. Now they do get some sort of blood lust. They can. I don't know how accurate that is, but remember what I said. A feeding frenzy only happens if these are provoked, meaning you go into a school and keep swiping at them, get them angry, or these are in starvation, and we'll get into that in a little bit. Now, the reproduction of the red-bellied piranha is done during rainy seasons. So these river basins down there have a very large dry and wet seasons. The dry seasons, these can really pull up. In the wet season, the rainforest really floods. And what the red-bellied piranha will do is it will go out into that flooded vegetation, and that it is important to note that when that vegetation is flooded, that's primarily what these things are eating. They're primarily eating. But in that flooded vegetation, the males and females will actually lay their nests at the base of a bunch of plants, especially with thick roots. So that flooding period is actually extremely important for their reproduction. Now, these are a popular aquarium fish as well. Fairly easy to keep. These are actually pretty darn easy to keep. They take to other food very well. They live very good in a school. They're not that aggressive around food. If you do go without feeding them too long, they will start nipping at other piranha in the tank, especially their tails. So, you know, little tails. If you see them nipping at each other, you probably need to feed them, but you could probably feed them about every other day and they're perfectly healthy. They do need a lot of plants. They do need a lot of shadow, because these kind of come out at the beginning of the day and the end of the day, and that's when they really are their most active. Now, in terms of price, I have found everything from $4 a fish, $25 a fish, $50 a fish. They're not that uncommon to find in the aquarium trade because they're actually very easy. The issue is that there have been fish released into the wild and they do cause a lot of problems because a lot of things don't really like to eat. However, it should be important to note that many of the locals down in the South America eat these fish very, very often. They're very easy to catch on a hook and line, so a lot of the locals will really eat a lot of red-bellied piranha. Now, kind of for the fun facts that we're going to end the video on, you know, I said these are a popular aquarium fish. However, if you don't feed them enough, they're going to nip at the fins of the other fish in there. But the reason why I kind of alluded to this is there's actually a lot of evidence that a very good portion, potentially large portion of their entire diet in the wild is actually fins nipped from the tails of larger fish. So what they could be doing is they could be running up to a larger fish, biting the tail fin, biting off a piece with those very sharp teeth, and then that's what they're going to eat, and then they'll come back later and grab another bite if that fish hasn't already eaten them or gone away. So very interesting. These fish are not that aggressive towards people. In fact, you can swim with these. Well, I promise you, the people in South America are not worried about red-bellied piranha. However, why are we scared of piranha? Why do people have this innate fear of piranha? And it actually stems back to an American president, Theodore Roosevelt, Teddy Roosevelt. Teddy Roosevelt was a very well-known explorer, loved to travel the world. And on an expedition, and I've found a couple of different accounts on what actually happened. He did an expedition down into South America, and there's a couple of different things. One said there's a guide. His guides down in South America took him to a stagnant pool during the dry season where there was a bunch of piranha in there. Remember, when they're pooled, these fish are starving, and he saw a feeding frenzy in the pool in this dried out section, and a feeding frenzy happened. The other account I had was that a tribesman down there, a chief, wanted to impress the president and blocked off a section of the river with red-bellied piranha in it, starved them for numerous weeks until Teddy Roosevelt got there, and then took a cow or a goat and cut it and then shoved it in the water, and then a feeding frenzy happened. regardless, whatever happened, and I believe the most well accepted one is that his guides took him in the dry season into a starving portion where there was just a pool of water. But regardless what happened, Teddy Roosevelt experienced a feeding frenzy. When he came back to America and he talked to the American people, he said there are devilfish down there, yada yada. It's scary because if you see a feeding frenzy, it's actually insane what these fish can do. There is no joke that they can strip a corpse completely free of flesh within minutes. It's crazy how fast they can do it. So if they are in a feeding frenzy and they are starving, they will tear you apart. But that expedition actually inspired a 1970s horror movie. And very similar to Jaws, where Jaws caused a very large fear of great white sharks in general, that 1970s horror movie really solidified people's fear of red-bellied piranha. So, because of that, people have this fear of piranha, but they're actually a really docile fish and not in any way dangerous. But thank you guys so much again. I really appreciate it, and I hope to see you again. If I don't, please be safe. Have a great day. Please leave a like, comment, subscribe if you do. I'd really appreciate it, and I hope to see you again. Take care of yourselves, take care of your loved ones, and peace.